we had a little glitch go on and little lack of mindfulness, but we will get a hold of the reality. We are there now, Marianne.
Sorry.
We're there now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways, how wonderful it is. Shalom to each and every one of you guys. What an amazing day. What an amazing time it is to be alive on this earth and all the truth that's coming. And you know, the wonderful blessing is as you grow, then you also, I know we don't like this part, but as you grow, you also have more responsibility. And that won't always be a popular facet, but it is true nonetheless. And so we've been looking at Thomas, and we've been looking at this mystical. I know for many of you this might be quite strange. For some of you, it may be becoming not quite as strange. But this mystical ascended master, there's really not any other way to speak. In fact, in my research that I'm constantly doing, I actually have found some things that would quite shock you, that the manifestation that is called Jesus, I would call Yeshua, that manifestation is really a metaphor for the divine knowledge that's been shared throughout history. And so I think there's certainly that part is playing in there. So we're gonna take some time and do what we normally do, and I think that we need to catch our breath, center ourselves. For some of you who may not know and understand this, for most of my life, to have said to me something about meditating, I'd have laughed at you. But I do have to admit that it certainly has opened doors, and it hasn't just opened doors in the times. And so I want to encourage you, if you've only been doing a minute every day, or you don't even time it, you just close your eyes and breathe and think. And so this is kind of a piece that I'm observing and watching and trying to learn. You know, first off, we're very undisciplined, so any of us spending, as Master Isa might have, spending 6 hours sitting with your legs in the lotus yoga position and being totally still and totally quiet, is probably not all that probable, at least not yet. I hope some of us become ascended masters and we may experience what that actually, the physiological changes that they've now recorded that go on inside of a person who meditates like that. But up and until that happens, I'm not going to beat myself up, and I'm certainly not going to beat you up. If you've never meditated before and you meditated 30 seconds, you're still better than you were. That's the beginning of a habit. And so what I would do is encourage you to continue that habit. And of course, as you continue the habit, hopefully you'll also find the value and you will increase the habit. And that's the other side. You know, we talk, and we have a real sickness in our society called addiction, but we never seem to quite gravitate and tie the two together, that addiction in and of itself is no more bad than the word cult is. It's the principle that you apply to that verbiage. Wouldn't it be great if we were all addicted to meditating? Wouldn't it be great if we all had more importance placed on meditating than we did on having fun or on our phone or yada yada yada? There's a million things, and so it's up to us then to set that precedent up in our life. But I will promise you this, that if you begin to do that and you continue to do that at whatever level you do it, you will see rewards. Will you receive more if you practice that more? I would definitely believe, from my journey anyways, and that's just mine, but I think I've talked to enough people that it's the same, has been the same for them, that when they meditate more often, they have more peace, they have more direction, they get more insights from the spirit realm. So I hope that you guys will just take that and let it encourage you. I'm not here to condemn anybody, folks. We're on a long journey, and we're coming from an even longer journey, and it's going to take us a while to get rid of that stuff. In case you haven't noticed, if it took 60 years to get all that stuff put in us, I'm pretty sure that it's not going to come out in 6 days. But on the other side, we can immediately, and which is where I started to go to, we can immediately, even at whatever level that we begin to make the change. It's very sad and very daunting to me that all my whole life I listened to my grandfather preach, and all my whole life that I preached, we preached out of a Bible, and we preached what we were told was the truth. And then all of a sudden it seems like that there's a cosmic time where the creator, the mind, the all decides that he's about to shift gears on things, and immediately that begins to unravel, but that's sometimes how revelation comes. And so I hope that you will recognize that this isn't just happenstance, and it's not just incidents. It's not just a few people. Will it radically change some people's lives? Yes. Will it radically change some people's lives, and then they will end up still turning around and going backwards? I suspect probably so. But on the other side, it's not about the ones that do and then go the other way, and it's really not about the ones that do and don't go the other way. What it is really about for us, it's supposed to be every day, am I being the best me? And hopefully that becomes an evolving description of oneself. And if it does, I promise you, you'll be blessed. You'll see things that you've never imagined before. I've had those clairaudience statements come through along with many others that I will see things that I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams. Even if somebody had told me that was possible, I would not believe it. And so when you get a message like that comes from the other world, it really makes a mark on you. And so I'm trying to learn how do we practice mindfulness? And I know I'm not being rude to anybody, but really, quite honestly, most of the people that live in our society are pretty mindless. They care about one thing, and that's fun. They care about how much money they can make, how much they can get over on somebody, and fun. And that's it. That's the essence of life. I talked to an atheist today, and it's funny because the atheist doesn't believe that there's a God, but had a better sense of what it means to love your neighbor as yourself than all the people I've ever known in Christianity, and I quite marveled at that. Why? Because it's not a religious concept. It's a spiritual concept. And since we are all spirit beings, as I shared last week and as I've been sharing, we all are the children of the mind, the children of the I am. If it's okay, it's wonderful if you call him God. I seem to fall back into that, the divine or God, but it is the force that drives everything, all things. Every universe, and so we're going to experience many things outside of this life that are our minds really can't conceive of it. And so I'm so thankful when I get insights like that are given to me. And so if we just take a few minutes here before we jump in to Thomas, really wonderful message tonight, really wonderful pieces of Yeshua truly exposing himself. He says some things, folks, that may shock you, because some of those pieces you've heard, probably some of you've heard from me and you didn't believe it, but it is true. That is who he is, and it is being exposed that he truly was a master, an ascended master. It had nothing to do with Jerusalem. It had nothing to do with the Jews. It had nothing to do with Yahweh. I haven't done it, I haven't fulfilled it all yet, but I do intend to. I have not yet been able to find anywhere in the Bible where Yeshua ever talks about Yahweh, ever. He talks about his Father, and he talks about his Father exclusively. He does not talk about El. He does not talk about Yahweh. And I used to not think anything about that because I thought I knew who his Father was. And in my mind, the definition of those words didn't change, but my perspective of them did. And so lots of things have been right there in plain sight in front of us, but we had to get a different perspective. We had to get out of Christianity and out of religion and out of their control before we could begin to look at the broader picture. And so if you're on this journey with me, wonderful, because I'm telling you, you'll be blessed if you'll be faithful and continue to work the principles. If not, unfortunately, you'll probably find yourself back to where you were. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody, myself personally. I don't want to go back to where I was. In fact, I don't ever want to go back. I don't have it, but I've been there and done that. And if I had a T-shirt, I'd burn it. So let's catch our breath. And we're going to release. This is a really good time also when you're doing these deep breathings to, in your mind, set an intention. And so the principle works really well. Just a nice large breath in. Hold that breath for 1,000 count if you're a counter. And then slowly release that deep breath out of you. And in your mind's eye, in your third eye, if you will see yourself, whatever it is that you're struggling with, whatever negativity that you've been dealing with today, and if you will exhaust that and see that in your mind, it's amazing how much it's coming through. That visualization is the power that Yeshua talked of believing that you see that something happens. So in your mind, if you are in a place and you release these negative energies that are hindering you, they're blocking you from experience all that there is. If you'll release those things, when you release them and see that in your mind, whether you recognize it or not in the spirit realm, you will have released that thing. Now you may have to do the same thing several times because we tend to have bents towards things that are holding us captive. Oftentimes we've been so addicted to that it wants to come back. But if you'll keep putting that, and as we heard last night, thank you, Stacy, but as we heard last night, and it was so funny because it was a synchronicity. I had a conversation today, and the person said, well, when them negative thoughts come that tell me that tell me it's not true, or tell me it's not going to work, or tell me, we're in the wrong path, she said, I just tell them things that they're a lie, and I push them out of my mind. And I went, that's a synchronicity, because that's exactly wording, different words, but the same principle that we heard someone else expose last night. And so that can then be a confirmation for all of us that we have to be mindful. That is being mindful. When you do those kind of works in your everyday life and take control of the thoughts of your mind, that's the essence of being mindful. In the past, you probably would have ended up agreeing. Your subconscious would have ended up agreeing with those thought processes. And then, of course, you know what you get into. You get into negative energy, and you get into anger and guilt and shame and all of that nonsense, and it's horribly destructive to us. Yeah, you nosedive. And then the next step for all of us is what happens when our what happens when our frequencies drop. This is really huge. So I'm saying this. I may never make it to the Thomas text, but it'll be good no matter what. This is a beautiful principle. We really don't understand it, but the picture is day by day is getting clearer. Whether we recognize that we are doing it or not, if we have some place inside of our life where we are functioning at a lower frequency, whether you realize it, you're not doing it intentionally and may not even have any knowledge that you are. But you are inadvertently calling, beckoning like the radio turned up loud, and you are calling people with those negative traits that you're struggling with inside of you, you are calling them to yourself. And so, as I shared today, if you find yourself around a person and all of a sudden you get, one you might question, you start getting 2 and 3 people pop up in the course of a couple of days in your life, and they're like really bringing the shame trip, not necessarily even at you, they're bringing their shame trip to you. You have to learn how to use that as an indicator that there is something inside of me right now that is working inside of me, and it's shame. And I need to deal with that frequency, and there are ways that you can do that, and it's a form of prayer where you recognize that there's something, you let that go, you release that, you acknowledge that, and what you will find is that will clear itself. And of course, that's an ongoing, constant stage, but when you see that go on, whatever it is, whether it be about guilt or shame or, the whole gamut of the things that are frequency, that's why I shared the frequencies with y'all a couple of weeks ago. We're calling those things to ourselves. And this is really so huge. Because I couldn't really get this concept that I'm creating my reality. What the heck does that mean? Did I sit down and write a script but unfortunately we're living every day, and we are calling to us the things both that we do like or that we don't like. And so when we begin to take control of our lives and we begin to recognize that we can direct our reality by changing our perspective, by changing our attitudes, by changing our thought processes, that our world around us can actually change. Even if nothing else changes, it will change in relationship to you. It's really huge. But so anyways, we're gonna pick up and go on. Gospel of Thomas, verse 45. I hope you'll see some of these principles even that I've talked about today, because some of them are in here. And as with all tech writings, you have some things that at the time don't seem so applicable. Don't completely write those off. Take them and put them up on the shelf and go, when this is relevant, then for me, when it's relevant for me, then it'll be there, and I'll have it put back in my mind, and it'll pop to the front, which I think many of you probably have noticed, that things pop to your mind sometimes that you haven't thought about, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, that was huge. So 45, Jesus says, grapes are not harvested from thorn trees, nor figs gathered from thistles, for they yield no fruit. Good persons produce good from what they've stored up. Okay? And bad persons produce evil from the wickedness that they have stored up in their hearts. Well, you can diagnose that statement right there immediately and recognize what he's talking about, friends, is he's talking about frequencies, exactly what I was just talking about. If you have a store of high frequency, you're going to draw good things, and not only are you going to draw good things, you're going to give out good things. And if you have a negative frequency and you're down on the bottom rung, you have nothing. All of us, I think, could recognize when we're depressed, when we're discouraged, when we're confused, we're weak, and we just sometimes can't even see the way out. And so, of course, then we've stored up bad things inside of us, and of course, what happens? Misery loves company, and here it comes. So, but the beauty is not that happens because it's going on whether you recognize it or not. You've been living that way your whole life. But the beauty now is that we can learn to recognize it, and when we recognize it, we can short circuit that time, and keep our life more at a balance, and keep our life more at peace. We can continue to love and not lose that and go back into hate and anger and unpeacefulness and unrest and confusion and anxiety. Heard a testimony. So to any of you out there, if you have testimonies, I certainly love to hear those things if anything I've done has helped you. But a testimony of somebody that has been for a while kind of struggling with being able to sleep is peaceful and that kind of stuff. And so I asked the question, well, are you sleeping any better? And the response is yes, absolutely. And so just if these principles can make you live a better life, how is that bad no matter what the situation is? Much less if we'll continue, we will live even a better life. And so it's pretty clear that his wickedness and his good things that come into us are the goodness. It is the love of God that lives inside of every one of us. I'm going to say this. It was never my favorite verse. I've already said this multiple times, and you will hear it even more times. I more now than ever believe, not in the Christian concept, but I do believe in John 3:16 that God is love, and in him there is no darkness at all. There is no darkness. He loves always. And I want to emulate that. So bad persons produce evil from the wickedness that they've stored up in their hearts, and say evil things from the overflow of the heart is how you produce evil. You want to know where evil comes from? It comes from the overflow of your heart. You want to know how people can say things without being mindful of the effect? It's because of the overflow of, and I'm not even going to use the word evil, but it's the overflow of what is in us. And so we have to, then once again, we have to accept responsibility that we have an issue, and it's our job to first off accept responsibility, and then secondly, to begin the steps that it takes to get rid of that. Whether that be changing something you're doing, whether that's, well, I haven't meditated in 2 weeks and all of a sudden I'm starting to have anger and stuff again. So no matter what the thing is, you have to first acknowledge. Secondly, you have to accept responsibility. And thirdly, then you have to begin the steps to fix whatever the problem may be. And so from the overflow of the heart, they produce evil. So I can then say, if the overflow of an evil heart produces evil, what do you think that the overflow of a good heart produces? Would it not then produce good? You want to know why you see these people and they're just like spilling love everywhere they go? There's why. Because they're full of love. And so the beauty is we have an opportunity to change that if we choose to. And if it does not change, then it's because you did not avail yourself to the tools that were necessary. Verse 46, Jesus said, "From Adam to John the Baptist, amongst those born of women, no one is so much greater than John the Baptist that his eyes should not be averted. But I have said, that whoever among you becomes a child will recognize the Father's imperial rule." What is the imperial rule? It's the fullness of what we were taught is the 10 Commandments. Love God, your Creator, with all your heart, all your mind, and all yourself, And the secondly is exactly like it, which is love your neighbor the same way you love you. That is the royal law. And it fits in everything. The laws that I showed you over here, the laws of Buddhism, the laws of Hinduism, all of those things are all pointing to the same thing, which is love. And any person, I love this because it's any person. You notice he didn't say any Jew. You notice he didn't say any Torah keeper. You notice he didn't say any Hebrew. But he said that whoever among you becomes a child will recognize the Father's imperial rule. Can I tell you why the world can't see? He just explained that. Because they're still not a child. They're still trying to run their own thing. I think that maybe we have a little piece of a missed concept, and hopefully I can help bring some clarity. What is the essence of this thing Yeshua has taught all through the scriptures? For those of you who've been with me all this time, we in the past, we read lots of scripture compared to most churches. And so what is this thing then? And I hope that you will recognize, maybe more so than you ever have. Maybe if you had a revelation of it, then maybe you can't get more, but maybe you never really fully got the revelation of it. What is this whole concept about being a child? I think I have a new insight for you that you might not have considered. And it's all about it's all about what I've been exploring. It's all about what I've been sharing with you guys. How do we become a child? How do we become a child? One of the ways that we become a child is to recognize that we really are his children. The same way we become light. How do we become light? We become light when we recognize that we are light. Nothing changed. We always were. It's not about the metaphysical world, the cosmic world. That's fixed at many levels. It doesn't deviate. What changes on this earth is our perspective of those things. And so if you become a child, you begin to recognize that you're not the boss and daddy is the source of all things. And because daddy is the source of all things, then I find the comfort and the warmth of being his child. I don't feel like if you'll pardon my language, I don't feel like a bastard child. I don't feel like some kid that's a throwaway, and maybe if I'm good enough, he'll let me eat the crumbs off the floor. Has anybody else besides me ever felt that? Many people may have lived their whole life feeling that way, that you're never quite accepted and you're never good enough. And if you go to a Christian church, they'll be more than happy to help you remember that you're not good enough. But when you become a child, they can no longer do that to you. For some of you, whether you recognized it yet or at a full extent, some of you are going to finally come to terms with the fact that you're not a mistake. Every one of us are here on purpose. Every one of us have a purpose. Every one of us have a purpose. And so when you begin to recognize that, then oftentimes it will begin to change. I'm very thankful he let me know that I had a purpose, but I'll be honest with you, if he hadn't have, I doubt seriously I would be here right now. Quite honestly. I had no reasoning for Christianity when I was 12 years old, and I left because of the hypocrisy of the hierarchy in the church. And my grandfather was a preacher. But it's like, I'd go home and be this. I don't need you to teach me how to be a hypocrite. You know, we just kind of have a natural bent towards doing that if we're not careful. And so, how do we become a child? We first off recognize that we are our Father's and that he does love us. You're not having to try to gain his acceptance. In fact, he accepts you whether you accept him or not. And so But the children will be the ones that recognize his law. So what he's really saying to you is the children of God can be defined as those people who recognize the love because God is love. And so when we talk about our Father, we're talking about love in the purest sense, the sense that none of us even have yet experienced unless you've been through a near-death experience and you were in the presence of the mind, which is another way of defining the God, the force, the power, the spirit, the creator, all of which are identical in meaning. And so when you begin to recognize that, then guess what you do? You all of a sudden begin desirous to please your Father truly. From the pure motive. From the motive of, I love you, Daddy, and I want to please you. I don't want to make you, I don't want to shame you. I don't want to put anything between me and you. I want me to walk so I no longer have to be under that heavy load of I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I'm nobody, I'm nothing, I have no worth, I have no value, I can't keep the commands. All I do is break them, and the harder I try, the more I break them. I get why Paul said what he said. He was dealing with the same structure. He wasn't good enough, even though he was one of the men in line for the high priest of the nation of Israel. He recognized in himself, he began to become enlightened, and he recognized he wasn't good enough. Wow, that's pretty huge. So, but by doing so, it elevates you. Why? Because we are all part of the collective, and none are any greater, friend. These celebrities that you see, if you let your mind be deceived into believing that those people are any better than you, shame on you. And we all have lived in a society where that crap is exalted, whether it be sports, whether it's music, whether it's television, whether it's movies, whether it's whatever it is. We truly fall into that place of believing that because those people are successful, somehow they must be better than we are. And that's a horrible fallacy to fall into. It is a lie, if there were one, from the pit of hell. And so we can become just as great and greater than John the Baptist simply by accepting our parentage. Because in that we will begin to find confidence. Many of you, if you're listening to me, and if you are beginning to practice some of these things, it's not prophesying, I'm going to tell you what the outworking is. You're going to begin to find a higher level of self-esteem. You're not going to have to do a thing to get it. It's not about, you don't get self-esteem because you did better. You get self-esteem because you recognize that you're accepted. And so your self-esteem is going to increase. You're going to find that your confidence increases. Will you make mistakes? Absolutely. But certainly we've made more than one mistake in our life. And then when you understand that it didn't separate you from him. And so I'll go back to another Paul's writing because it's really a pretty writing. Nothing can separate you from the love of God is one of the most profound statements that existed. And I hated that stupid New Testament verse. It's one of the most true things there is nothing you can do that will make God not love you. And any of you that know me know that you could ask your question right now again. Is that really Rob Turner up there? To find what true love is, that I really am okay, that it really is all right. I know I mess up sometimes. Just because I do doesn't mean he hates me. He's not interested in trying to kill me. If he wanted to do that, friends, he could have killed us all in the blink of an eye. Jesus said, a person cannot mount two horses or bend two bows. And a slave cannot serve two masters. Otherwise, that slave will honor the one and will offend the other. For those of you, I'm not making a statement. I give no direction about what you do. Each one of us has to work this out for ourselves. But I will draw a picture for you. When you understand metaphorically what he's talking about, there is a facet of that statement. If it's not complete, I personally believe it's complete. But even if it's not, it's still a facet of it. And he is speaking there of the mixing of these two lives. Okay? You can't be one and the other. You either do believe you're light or you don't. You either do recognize that you're his child in the proper context of, if I'm a child of the Creator, I'm a child of the exceptional. Should I not then act like a child of the exceptional? That's why you hear so much about mindfulness. If we would have anything that would lower our self-esteem or lower our frequency, it should be that we failed by being mindless. So don't do that, and then you don't have to struggle with that. We should be constantly thinking. Why? I think we have a lot of Alzheimer's because ignorance is bliss. Well, unfortunately, there's a medical trait that goes on. Any muscle that's not used gets weak. You quit using your mind gets weak. Immediately it begins to atrophy. And I don't think Alzheimer's really personally anything but an atrophied mind. So a person cannot mount two horses or bend two bows, and a slave cannot serve two masters. Otherwise, that slave will honor the one and will offend the other. And so for those who end up going back and trying to find their way through salvation by being a cannibal and drinking blood, after having known the truth, then he says, you chose. You can't be both. You either are accepted and you're complete, or you're not, and you need a Savior. If I'm complete and I have lost nothing and I am not lost, then why would I need a Savior to save me? I'm on a journey through life, and this human body's going to die. I don't die. I'm never going to die. I'm going to be around long enough to bug everybody for as long as eternity is. What if you had confidence of that? What if you really knew that was the case? What if your honor and integrity creeped up so much, though, you go, I'm going to be around a few thousand years. I might ought to think about it. It's called mindfulness. Verse 3, nobody drinks aged wine and immediately wants to drink young wine. Young wine is not poured into old wineskins, or they might break. And aged wine is not poured into new wineskins, or it might spoil. An old patch is not sewn onto a new garment, since it would create a tear. What's he talking about? He's not talking about literally. He doesn't care a thing about a leather bag you wear around your neck that has your liquid in it. He doesn't care about that. That's not what this is about. This is about your spiritual life. You cannot continue to wear the old while you're trying to put the new in. Hello, is anybody awake tonight? I know that I've been condemned on many levels about speaking about separation. Separation never ceases to exist in the kingdom of the Almighty. We must separate ourselves to Him. I don't know how that all works out. Do I think you could go in and out of a Christian church if you chose to? I guess you can. I don't say that that's going to send you to not hell, but on the other side, the question I would have is why would you? Why would you not live in the joy and the peace of love that He has made for us? And so you can't serve two. It'll be one or the other, and I don't like that. I'm gonna work discipline on that situation. Quit trying to put a patch on your old wineskin. If you want new wine, cough up what it takes to get a new wine bottle and put that new wine in that bottle. What might the metaphor for a wine bottle be? Could it be that the wine bottle is your mind? So if you want this new spirit revelation, if you want this new goodness of the love of God and that we are light and all of those, and they're amazing, man. But if you want that, you got to do something. You got to change what holds that. Well, what holds that? Your mind does. And we have to take on a new mind. By taking on a new mind, we then make room with a container which can contain this new wine, this new spirit. Wine and spirit are synonymous in biblical writing. You must make a new vessel to contain this new spirit that we have. And that's why so many people see transformations. That's why people are beginning to feel more peace and more rest, and they're sleeping better, and all of a sudden their life is balanced. There's not as much as hills and valleys, and they're starting to go, well, that's drama, and I don't like being around that anymore. Don't forget the timeline. That's an old timeline. Please do yourself the favor of reminding yourself on an everyday basis when you end up encountering people you've known your whole life and you all of a sudden come to the revelation that you no longer like who that person is. That is an old timeline. And it may not work in the new time. That wine may not hold in the new wineskin. Does it mean you hate them? Absolutely. In fact, it should mean that you exude, you send out more love towards them because of that, not less. But you can't put that new, wonderful, glorious love inside of an old mind. You have to. Oh, I'm sorrowful. Was there somebody in the Bible? Y'all help me out. I gotta, I'm getting old. My mind's getting atrophied, and wasn't there somebody who said something about that? Oh yeah, I think there was, wasn't there? And Jesus said, "This is so beautiful. This is so beautiful." I told Sister Francis today, man, this is a killer message tonight. This is wonderful food for us if we'll take a hold of it and eat it and swallow it and savor it like a good glass of wine. Not that I like to drink wine, because to me it's pretty nasty stuff. But for those of you who do like wine, I like to savor my gummy though, so I get the revelation. I milk that thing to the very last. It'll be the tiniest little bit. And I try not to chew it, but how many does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll? I ain't got a clue, because it's gone before I get there. But here's the reality of it. It says, if two make peace with each other in a single house. Well, we got a lot going on already in this. If two, so he's talking about a multiplicity. And so we then have to begin to decide what is the multiplicity? Is it two that make peace in one house? Because one person might see that as, well, when me and Dave are at peace together and we're both trying to walk in the same path, then, nobody can stop us. And while that's very valid, and it is in fact true, there may very well be a higher calling than that. So that one is relevant. It is real. It is correct. It is an interpretation. But what about if the picture gets presented to you that the two are the one that owns the house and the one that's coming into the house? So what if me and my father get at peace in his house? Is there anything that can stop me? Can I answer the question for you? No. Not a thing. So we don't need one interpretation more than the other, because the one interpretation inevitably should lead us to the second interpretation. which is if I have this going on with me and him in his house, because that's the house I'm interested in being in, if I have this going on between me and him, then this is supposed to be going on as an outworking of it. And the same for all of you. Those who separate yourself, you ain't got no time for nobody that's a follower. You spend most of your time away from people that are trying to find the truth. Friend, you're just hurting yourself. I don't condemn you for that. Be whatever you choose to be, whatever you think is going to get you through. But it's quite clear that there are many principles about those of like precious faith spending time together. So, is it strengthening because I have other people? We went last night to an amazing open forum kind of a thing about signs and synchronicities, which for some of you who may not even understand what a synchronicity is, but it was just a gathering of people who didn't know each other, and it wouldn't matter whether we did. It just happened that this group didn't. And sitting around and listening to how other people are and what they're experiencing on their spiritual journey. And it was amazing. Every one of us walked out of there and we were strengthened. We were encouraged. There was no world shattering, word came from the other side. It was just simply human people that are recognizing that the journey is this, in sharing both their plights, their failures, as well as their successes. And that does what? That strengthens us. I could have gone somewhere and sat in a bar and listened to a guy tell me about how his old lady acts. I would have certainly gotten a spirit, but it wouldn't have been the kind of spirit I'm desirous to be around. What's my point? My point is we then have to choose. Once again, we are, and I'm going to say this 1,000 times, friends, but you are creating you don't like your reality, it's because of the things you're doing, not because of some other thing. So, if two make peace with each other in a single house, well, my Father is not unpeaceful with me. So that's half of the equation right off the get-go. It's now up to me to choose to make peace with him and come into his house, because we can only have one house. We can't have him living in my house. I have to go live in his house. They will say to the mountain, move from here, and it will move. And so I believe in the human connection. I believe that when more people come together, if you get in a place and people's hearts are really right and you get a bunch of them, man, there's a glory that goes on in that. Some of you that have been in church with me, you felt some of the times when the glory of God was everywhere. It wasn't because everybody there was perfect. It was because people came with the heart expectancy for a move from the divine. And that can even happen in a Christian church. Please listen. We saw a lot of supernatural stuff in a Christian church, but it wasn't Christian. That's the fallacy that you and I had. Those of you who were there who thought this is because we're Christians, wrong answer. This is because we are following the one true creator. And when people's hearts get in alignment, then immediately you open the door for supernatural things to happen. People's lives can be changed. People's bodies can be healed. I said it earlier today, and I'm going to say it again, friends. You guys have not seen the things that are coming. And I'm not talking negatively. I know that I know that I have had a huge bent for that, and that is on its own already beginning to shift some. Things that I used to tolerate are no longer pleasurable anymore. And that's quite strange to look at something that you used to desire, well, I want to go watch this, and you go watch it now and you go, that's like all about chaos, and that's like all about drama, and that's like all about negative, and here I am over here raising my frequencies. Instead I sit 4 hours in front of a TV show that shows me nothing but distress, and I'm somehow, I'm enlightened. Hello. You all got quiet on me. So if two do, not that they have to, but if they do, if two people make peace together, they're infinitely stronger than either one of them by themselves. So it is a human thing as well. But if you want the most out of the situation, then you got to get this one right and enter into his house. And then when you make those connections with other spirit humans, then all of a sudden you really become powerful. Which is what's going to bring the things on where we see things where people are healed and we see things where life are radically changed. And that stuff's coming, friend. I'm just telling you. If I can charge the air and call it from the universe, and I am, whether you know it or not, I am calling those things right now that be not as though they are. And Jesus said, congratulations to those who are alone and chosen. Wow. This is one of the most amazing verses that you will ever see in your life. Congratulations to those who are alone and chosen. For you will find the Father's, can I give you another word there? The Father's house. So he just gave a parable, and he's actually broadening that by saying those who are alone and chosen will be the ones who find the Father's, not just his house, his domain, his kingdom. For you have come from it, and you will return there again. Can I tell you, whether you like it or don't like it, he just told you, and if you want to use the Christian facet, that we were with God before we came here, and we came from here, and the Bible tells us that when we die, we return to God. What the Bible doesn't tell you is that you have done that multiple times, and you most probably will do it multiple times after this life. It's implied if you understand what Yeshua is saying. It's not directly stated, but it is an implication. Congratulations to those who are alone and chosen, for you will find the Father's domain. For you have come from it. I came from his domain. I've already been there. In fact, I made a contract with the creation to come to earth, and I can't quite always deal with that. I didn't choose my parents. I didn't choose to live my life. I didn't choose all of this stuff. If I could choose now, I would change it all. But you signed a contract full well knowing, accepting responsibility that you were going to come to those parents and you were going to live here and you had a thing you needed to work on in your life and you're going to go through this little human experience as a spirit being and you're going to die and your body's going to get rotted and your being is going to exist just as if you never had a body. That's pretty profound stuff, but it is in fact reality. And so he says, you've already been there. It's not very popular knowledge, but I believe that not everyone has been there, but not everyone will return there. And I'll leave that for a later date. He makes a very specific mark that there is a specific people. I've seen several teachings about this, and I'm quite sure they probably haven't read the Gospel of Thomas. But I have, where spirit forces have told us that there will be a separation. And friends, we are living in a time where, as all time has been, but where there are people who will choose not to be enlightened while they're here. It's a choice you make. You can turn around right now and go back to what you used to live, and you can act like all of this was a joke and a fake, and nothing I've said is real, and it doesn't hurt me a bit. It does hurt me because I know that you're missing an amazing part of this whole journey that we call being a human. But on the other side, it's only going to affect you however it affects you. Maybe you just have to come back twice more instead of once more. But you will learn the lesson that you need to learn. That you can be sure of. And so congratulations to those who are alone and chosen. Why? Because the masses are never going to follow this path. And there's more people on this earth probably following this path right now than has ever been. Maybe even all the way back to Egypt, which is stuff that I'm researching for you as I showed you in Egypt the other day. They were dealing in the spirit realm back then, friends. This ain't new. In fact, this is old. Where do you think all of this is coming from? This is the reawakening. The Spirit, I believe, brought to me the other day a new revelation. And once again, it's not a new revelation. It's just a renewing. But while I was thinking about these things and about the stuff that I shared with y'all on Saturday in Egypt, and the Spirit just brought Solomon to my mind, and then dropped a thought inside of my mind that Solomon was the one who told us that everything that has been will be again. Even the truth and the proverbs that were acquired and attributed to Solomon were not new with Solomon. He was just recanting a 1,000 years from the last time that another gifted seer recanted 1,000 years from another seer who recanted. And so what's going on, friends, is the Creator chooses and sends people down here that are chosen for specific times, seasons, and specific messages. Okay? And you have to understand that this is always going on. These people are not wrong when they tell you that Buddha, who was an ascended master, is the spirit of the same thing that Yeshua was, who is an ascended master. All from the same collective, all from the same Spirit, Father, Creator. There's nothing new. This has always been. Where we're headed right now, friends, into the supernatural realm, has always been. It's just new to us. And so we get to go into the Father's domain. We get to go into His completeness. Jesus said, if they say to you, where have you come from? This was really the icing on the cake of the last verse. So if you struggled with the last verse, hopefully this one will give you a little bit of clarity and peace about that I'm tracking exactly as the truth is, because I am. But if they say to you, where have you come from? Oh, I'm from Austin, Texas. Say to them, we have come from the light. Does anybody see that? If you have any doubts, friends, that I'm off my rocker and I'm teaching a bunch of occultic, mystic BS, I hope that you will open your heart and I hope you will listen to what the Spirit is trying to say to us. This is an ascended master. This is true wisdom and knowledge. And He's not saying, I need to die on a cross and you need to eat my body and drink my blood. If they say to you, where have you come from? Say to them, we have come from the light. Who am I? I am light. You have no clue since Saturday when I spoke those words that Yeshua, or last Wednesday, when I spoke those words and Yeshua said that you are the light. How many times I've spoken that over if I have half a doubt, half a second of hesitancy, I remind myself already that I am the light. I have no need to fear. If they say to you, where have you come from? Say to them, we have come from the light, from the place where the light came into being. How, pray tell, did it come into being? It came into being by itself. Did you see the profoundness of that right there? How did the light come? It came into being by itself. Established itself and appeared in their plural image. Talking about us. Please do not miss that and misunderstand that. It is quite significant, friends, that we have the light of the Creator is us and is in us. I'm going to read it to you because this is massively profound. This will release you from a whole lot of lies you've been living under if you will just let it. If they say to you, we have come from the light, say to them, where have you come from? We have come from the light, from the place where the light came into being by itself, established itself, and appeared in their image. If they say to you, is it you? Say, we are its children. It's who? The light. And we are the chosen of the living Father. Wow. Can I tell you something? Does that make any of you question how we could have been so duped with that beautiful, amazing message? 2 verses should change the whole world. But does that not amaze you that we were duped into believing that somehow we had to walk by all of these rules and we had to do this and we have to... I saw somebody who's coming out in enlightenment. They wrote a post and they wrote it in enlightenment, and the woman, very educated, she says, well, I don't believe in Christianity, but I do think that the efficacy of eating the body and drinking the blood of Jesus is true. It wasn't because she's stupid. She's got several PhDs. It was that she's still under so much control for all of Christianity she has come out with. She is still hung on one of the most basic lies of Christianity in the first place, which is Yeshua was a cannibal. And told us that we should be cannibals. So if they say to you, is it you? Are you God? Which corrects some things. You're not God. We are its children, and we are the chosen of the living Father. If they ask you, what is the evidence of your Father in you? Say to them, it is motion and rest. What does that mean? What does that mean? What is a sign to us that the tides are the Father's? Because there's motion and there's rest. What is the sign for us? That we are motion and then we rest. Does anybody see that? Oftentimes the things that we think are insignificant spiritually, they're quite huge. Do you understand what goes on when you sleep and your conscious mind is turned completely off? People have dreams. They don't have conscious mind dreams. They have third eye dreams. What they dream, they're dreaming in their mind. It's not what they're seeing. It's what they're seeing. If they see something, it's what they're seeing in their mind. not what they're seeing in the pseudo reality that we call our lives. His disciples said to him, "When will the rest for the dead take place? And when will the new world come?" Did y'all pick up the little hint there that I left out on purpose? What is the rest he's talking about, friends? He said, you want to know? I suspect maybe you didn't see this, but he said, you want to know how you're from your father? You're from your father because your body's going to die, but you're not. Our bodies are going to rest. We're going to die. That's a sign that we're from him. So when will the rest for the dead take place, and when will the new world come? And he said to them, what you are looking forward to is already come, but you don't know it. Can I tell you, what you've been looking for your whole life has already come. It's already here. All you have to do is learn how to enter into it. You have to unprogram yourself from the lies and the deception that they've used to control you and turn you into a mindless robot that supports them. And they do that through feeding you to the point so that you fear constantly, because the energy power of fear is infinitely stronger than the energy power of love to the beings who control everything. Said what you're looking for has already come. It's already here. You already are. Just because you're in a human body doesn't change anything spiritually. In fact, the reality you're living in is simply because that's the reality that you choose to live in. If you change your mind, you can change your reality. Things will begin to happen different. If you've always been the person nobody liked, if you change your reality, I guarantee you, all of a sudden you'll start seeing people, and I've watched this, you will start watching people that begin to treat you differently. They may not even have known you, but they recognize who you are now, that you're functioning in love, because our aura puts off everywhere, whether at those times, sometimes your aura can be seen when you are flowing in the spirit. But on the other side, you have an aura. Every one of us have an aura field that goes around us constantly. That's how you walk up to someone and immediately your skin stands on edge. It's because of the aura that they put off. And the same when you do that. On the other side, when you walk up to somebody and you just feel like, wow, I've known this person my whole life, that's because of their aura. And he says, what you're looking for has come, friend. But up until this point, we haven't known it. All our life, we've been trying to keep some commandments so we could get salvation. He goes, what salvation? What salvation? You're a human. You were created to come here, have a spiritual experience, learn something that you needed in the spirit realm, and that's the end of the human life. If you have to do it multiple times, you have to do it multiple times, but it doesn't make you a human. You're just having a human experience. We're all spirits, and we're always going to be in spirits. We've always been experienced. We have always been spirits, and we will always be spirits. That doesn't change. What does change is whether we're functioning in a human realm or whether we are no longer in a human realm. And so he's beginning to help us be enlightened so that we can know it. How do I know enlightenment is a huge part? And I'm going to go back to this. It's really crazy to me. The more that I learn, the less I need to throw away all the things that I've learned. I know y'all don't know it, but I had somebody speak prophetically over me that I did not need to get rid of. She didn't know anything about my life other than what I told her. And she said, I feel like in my spirit that you do not need to get rid of the foundations you've built. That was so amazing to me. Wouldn't have meant anything else to anybody else, but it did to me. And ever since she said that, the Bible has just become alive. But it's not the Bible that the Christianity teaches. So listen to this again. They real quickly stuck a Yod Hey Vav Hey in here, okay, because we're trying to sell the agenda of Yahweh. But the Creator will kneel before you, presenting gifts, and will guard you with a hedge of protection. The kneeling before you isn't an act of submission, it's an act of kindness, it's an act of humbleness. The Creator, the mind, the force, the divine, will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards you, bringing order, and he will give you comfort and sustenance. Every one of those things are promises of illumination, friend. If you think I've lost it because I tell you that we must be illuminated and we must begin to ascend, we must become more mind conscious, a higher consciousness, and will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon you, and he will set in place all you need to be whole and complete. How do you do that? He just told you. You put yourself in the right place, which is exactly what Yeshua said. So illumination has always been a part of the Scripture. It's been denied to us. It's been washed away with interpretations, but it's always. You go back to the Hebrew and you find out what those guys really said, which is why the whole thing with Morrow is so huge. And I hope you guys aren't being bored, but he really, I'm watching in all kinds of areas of life, those principles. We're watching them play out right now in our politics in America. Exactly what I read on Saturday to you guys. That's exactly what's going on in the political realm, even today. So the Creator is always trying to send us the signals and the things that we need to grow so that we can be illuminated. So I hope you guys will take a chance and will recognize that there's so much that has been robbed from us, and I get it if you don't understand about Reiki, and you don't understand about chakras, and you don't understand about crystals aren't the devil's worship, and I understand you don't understand that stuff. There are lots of forces that are put on this earth that are beneficial to us if we use them beneficially. And so I hope that you guys will recognize that he really is, the Master, Yeshua, really is trying to tell us. See, they took this book, even though it's more ancient than all four of the Gospels, they took this book and they hid it from the human race, because if you ever found out that you truly were light and what that really means, and I'm not saying that any of us truly even have a beginning clue of what that truly means, the full ramifications of what does it mean then when Yeshua said, I am light. I don't think we still really at all get the fullness of what that really encompasses. But the fact that we made it to that point means that if we continue in this journey, then we will also continue to grow, and we will continue to learn, and we will continue to see and understand things that we've never believed we could even, in our minds, we could have never even concocted. That's how powerful and that's how potent this universe is. And so I hope you guys well on your journey. I hope that you will not just write off these things as not having any value. And I hope that you will see that there is truth all over the world. There is truth all over the world. It's just up to us to allow that into our perception. Oftentimes we walk right by truth because it's a annoyance. How many times has somebody said something that was true to you and you went, oh, I don't believe that, only to find yourself 2 years later saying the same words? I'm here a living example that that's true on 1,000 different levels. Before we quit eating pork and unclean food, I laughed because Jesus said it was okay for us to eat whatever we wanted to. And now I find out we can eat whatever we want to. Although I don't want to. We still eat a kosher diet, and we'll continue to do that. I'm all right with that. I'm not interested in the poisons of bottom feeders. We all have to fight with enough bottom feeder humans every day. I don't need to eat that kind of food too. So love yourself and take care of yourself. Eat a healthy diet. If you can, I've been doing yoga, man. It's amazing how just in a few weeks it's already begun to loosen my joints up, and doesn't mean I don't have any hurts, but it means that my hurts aren't like they were 2 months ago. And so meditate daily, multiple times during the day. Just give thanks. Thank your spirit guides for guiding you through the day. Thank your Creator that He loves you so much that He's revealing truth to you that you never would have learned otherwise. Gratitude on the frequency chart, friends, gratitude is the highest frequency that we can possess. That's why Paul said that in all things rejoice, because in that state of rejoicing, we must function with gratitude to be thankful, because our lives are not perfect. None of us are. None of us have perfect lives, nor will any of us ever have what humans consider to be a perfect life. On the other side, we can absolutely walk in the perfect life of our Creator Father as His wonderful, loving, little, humble children. And I hope that that's your journey, because if it is, then we are like spirits, and I'm glad to meet you. So, blessings to each and every one of you. I hope as you go, these words will resound inside of you, and I hope they'll reverberate every day. You will gain a new truth. And so, shalom. We'll be back on Saturday at 2 o'clock. Got some killer songs. We're trying to rewrite songs as fast as we can, and we had lots of time to write the ones we wrote before and not as much time to do it again. So, but I'm thankful for the journey, because it's been amazing. So, peace and love and blessings to every one of you. I hope that you feel truly, truly the blessings of our Father that make us rich and bring no sorrow in our lives. Shalom.